This picture in the background is Bombay or Mumbai. It's a megapolis city. We have a population of about 25 million people. There are many mega cities coming up in the world, and I quite believe with the advent of IoT and big data, so lots and lots of data being generated, and lots and lots of devices and things having a transmitting device, whether you call it a SIM card or a sensor or a Bluetooth or whatever, makes these mega cities very interesting, and there's a big role that we can play for the next 20 years going forward in this. People will continue to commute. This is New Delhi in the evening. This is every day. This is not going to change. It'll only get worse. And this is the same story in everywhere in the world. I thought Netherlands is not much better, but I had experience of traffic jam near Eindhoven last week. Not as bad as this, but still pretty bad. The idea is people continue to move. Mobility continues to happen. We have video conferencing. We have augmented reality. Cisco has these technologies. But we all still show up in a conference halfway across the world, and we all meet. So that doesn't go away, right? To deploy a seamless integrated connected transportation network encompassing planes, cars, bikes, buses, auto rickshaws, metro rail, and walking. We talked about autonomous cars. I believe we'll have autonomous flight systems in about 25 years from today. A lot of things that we are doing today we never expected, like talking to each other on the phone or video chat. This was the biggest. If you watch cartoons 20 years ago, that was the biggest thing. In a cartoon, they used to keep talking. Kids used to talk to each other on video chat. Jetsons. That's normal today. So about us, we're about a 20-year-old company. We're about 850 people strong. We are one of the most exciting brands about maps and navigation in the Indian market. We are head office in New Delhi. I'm personally based in Bombay and a bunch of other offices in India. We have Qualcomm on the board of the company. We have Zenrin, which is a Japanese map company. And we have Flipkart, which is India's largest e-commerce company. I think it was just one of the fastest growing companies in the world. We get a lot of location data from them. And it's very interesting working with e-commerce companies, especially ones which are growing at 1,000% per year types. They have about 80 million active users and still exponentially growing. Got a lot of awards, but the one that stood out is we were a Harvard Business Review case study for the way the company has been come around and the kind of stuff that we have done. We are one of the first companies that raised venture funding in India. We've given many multiple returns to our investors, and we never used any of the money. Interestingly, we kind of parked it for R&D exercises, not for marketing, not for sales, and we're highly profitable as a company. So we grew as a traditional map GIS company. We productized our products. We converted that to navigation in about 2007. No one taught us how the formats are made and what the specifications are, but we went forward. We entered tracking and telematics. India has about 200 of those companies. Europe has many telematics companies. We have many customers around in Europe and in UK. And a couple of years ago, we went into indoor mobility products. So if you look at evolution of maps, I've been reading a lot of Roman history over the last few months. And this is a map of Rome in Julius Caesar's time, right? So you can see how detailed it is. So map culture has remained. Only the method of using it has kind of changed, right? It's gone from a cloth map or a tablet, or physical stone tablet, to digital and augmented reality now. This is Marco Polo in about 1200 and something, 1271. These are aviation maps. So as you can see, the demand for maps never goes away. The type of map changes, and the way you consume it and the way you display it, that changes. And how you build a business model around it, that depends from person to person. This is a digital map of Bombay. This is one of the most congested areas in the world. If anyone's been to India and Kalba Devi, that's the same place. Very similar to Istanbul. If you've been to the old city market or Bangkok, very congested. So you can see if one of the most congested areas in the world has a very detailed, building footprint, house number map, well detailed out. We have it, Google has it, a bunch of other companies. So what next? So we believe indoor maps is the next frontier. XAD talked about it. They made a whole business model about it. People walking to the store and they display ads on it. And that's a great idea, right? But if the map was not there, and if Google had not given the interface on the bottom, and the location information wasn't around, they cannot build a business model on top of it. So we look at parking maps for parking structures. Yes, autonomous cars will be there, but it's still a long way to go. Parking structures are very, very complicated. I remember going to Chicago and I parked on the 32nd floor of a building in downtown Chicago. It just took me like 20 minutes just to climb up the building. Airport maps, retail stores. I was in Schiphol. I had to meet someone last week. And we kept on calling each other. He was coming from some other European city. We were meeting at the airport. It was a mess. It took us half an hour to find each other, right? Finally, I went to the airport counter authority. I told her, please, can you tell this gentleman where I'm standing, and where he is, and we can kind of find each other. Why? Because the indoor positioning is not good enough on WhatsApp or on Google Maps, so we can share our location. But that will change. Hotels, large office complexes, schools, universities, hospitals, you name it. The next frontier is indoor, right? This building, I want you to find this room, this specific room, Diamond 2. I asked around, I found it. But it would have been nice if I could just click a button and just, I could just walk over here. So if for different people, a lot of people are very claustrophobic, and a lot of people do not have a sense of direction. Some people are very good at directions, and some people are really, really bad. It totally depends person to person. But there's something known as a cognitive map for everyone in our brain. And in a cognitive map, anytime you're going, so if you're walking from here to the hotel, if you're staying nearby, and if you're new to the area, so I use the Rabo Bank nearby as a reference to go to the hotel that I'm staying at. So everyone uses some sort of a landmark or some cognitive, some structure, basis which the brain takes decisions. Some people are better at it. Some people are not able to process their information. The indoor map navigation depends on the spatial ability of the person. A lot of people get lost. If you are on a cruise ship, it's very, very irritating. It's these mega cruise ships, and you keep finding the restaurant. And you keep walking up and down the place and say, where the heck is this place, right? The layout of the building matters. So if you are in a standardized, organized, square, rectangular building, like a Walmart, for example, it's easy. But if you're, let's say, in a Tesco in UK, or Marks and Spencer, it gets very, very complex, because the stores are not as standardized as, let's say, Walmart or a Target or a big box store is. Again, you lose your spatial ability. So how do you make indoor maps, and how does this whole technology work? And all of us are from this industry. Most of us know how this works. But broadly, you got to take a georeference map as per some reference, and you create a format of data which the indoor software technology will understand. There are a bunch of software formats out there, a bunch of data formats. Apple has their own, Google has their own, Amazon has their own, and there must be another 40, 50 different formats floating out there. On top of that, you have indoor positioning technology. There are companies in China right now that are, if you have used some of these things, you have a Bluetooth finder. So you tag your phone with a Bluetooth finder or your keychains, and you can kind of find it inside the house. Qualcomm is working on indoor positioning technology and so is Intel. The standards being developed right now that you will be able to tag pretty much everything inside your house. It's interesting. If you go to some of these labs and you see what they're doing, it's very fascinating. So the indoor positioning technology right now is not so good. It's about anywhere from 8 feet to about 20 feet. My belief is in the next 4-5 years, it'll come down to a feet, and it'll even go smaller and smaller. It depends a lot on the computational technology. Most of you have Apple phones. Every Apple device talks to every Apple device, right, after iOS 8.1. So Apple is triangulating you constantly as you're moving around. Once you have the indoor positioning technology in place, you survey the venue to find out the fingerprinting, the hotspots, the Wi-Fi places. Every software kind of works differently. And then you implement the whole thing end to end. The first indoor map that I had seen was, I think it came from Ericsson or Nokia, one of these companies. It was in Scandinavia. They had done this for their own office. And there are many, many, many European companies out there today which are working on this technology. But it's interesting. So if you look at the outdoor map or the pedestrian map, there used to be many, many mapping companies around the world. Most of them kind of disappeared, or most of them started doing other things. Google dominates. There's Apple, or there's Bing, here, or TomTom. There are about 10, 12 odd companies that cannot dominate across the world. Indoor won't work like that. Indoor will have space for everyone. So if I am a particular bank and I want to make indoor maps for, I have 85 buildings across the world, or I am General Electric and I have 3,000 buildings across the world, I want an indoor navigation system for my employees or my attendees and the likes. There will be a company which can cater to that. But if I'm Walmart and I want to do offer-based advertising based on which shelf my product is, there's a completely different company that will take care of that. So depending on where you play in the value chain and you play public or private, if I'm Guggenheim Museum, I'm putting up a new art exhibit. And if anyone's ever been to the New York Metropolitan Museum and you want to find a particular art piece, it's a massive museum. It's very difficult. It takes a long time. If I have an indoor map for the Met, and there is Van Gogh has a new collection. Van Gogh's collection is up there in some godforsaken place inside the museum. It's easy to find it if you have a technology to find it without asking around and wasting time. So when you say be private or public, who owns the data, right? So the question that comes up, which has not really come up, and the European Union is kind of debating and discussing that right now. So a lot of the indoor positioning data that is being generated from our phones, etc. Right now, the big, I call it the Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon community, they kind of keep this data with themselves. Is that data theirs? Is the data of the user? Is the data public data? A lot of the discussions will start popping up in a big way as more and more data gets generated. It's already there. I logged in yesterday, and you have to say yes to the privacy laws in Netherlands. That doesn't exist in India, for example. But the discussion is on, and more people will start talking about it. The permitted outputs that you create, who has rights over it? Is it the company that made it in the value chain? Is it the building owner? Is it the person using it? That again gets defined. Each venue will be different, and as I say, multiple companies operating in the value chain. So why a flat world? Why did I say it's a flat world? I believe to scale, so to give you an idea, today between Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and most of the other companies out there, they're only digitized. And when I'm saying a map, indoor map digitized, I mean this table, this chair, everything, right? It's not just a box. There are about 130,000 to 150,000 venues that have been created in the world across all these big giants. We're working with many of these guys, and that's it, right? There must be millions and hundreds of millions of venues across the world or buildings across the world. So that's a big opportunity. Once the positioning technology has been approved upon and you need to scale, the only way to do it is you go to a low-cost country like India and you set up a factory, either use a drone or use human beings, you process the data, and you start building and start churning out millions and millions of locations. Exactly what Google did. Apple went to India a couple of weeks ago. They're opening a huge data center or a huge map processing center there. Google's been there for about 10 years. Here Map is there, TomTom is there. And many companies from Europe and the US have gone and opened up offices there. Just for the sheer number of people that you need to do this business. And some screenshots, different buildings, different locations. Different languages, which is interesting. So if you're going to have an indoor map, you can't just do it for one. If I'm 7-Eleven and I'm present across the world, I cannot have indoor map for 3 districts or 3 cities. I need to roll out across the world. Otherwise, it doesn't look nice. It's a branding exercise. This was Schiphol. This was Grand Central. There are not very detailed indoor maps even today for places like this. And these are really visited. Millions of people walk down this. So how do we make money? That was the theme yesterday, right? And how do you generate business out of this? That's none of us are in the NGO business. None of us are doing charity. We're all having a business summit. So a good example is location-aware advertising. XAD and I'm sure there are many other companies like them have found that space, and someone will kind of dominate the space. One size doesn't fit all. So I don't believe in the indoor mapping space. A Google or an Apple or a Facebook or a here will dominate. There'll be many companies. Just like how there are many municipalities, and every municipality has their own rules. Same thing will happen here. So a lot of opportunities for small and medium businesses to kind of grow in this space. I don't think the data will be shared. There will be no open data concept that happens. Everyone talks about open data, but no one's really willing to open up the data. If I ask a company's balance sheet and the financial structures, no one's willing to share it. So open data is there, but it's really not still there. Drone technology, I think, will become in a big way. So what you see in the sci-fi movies, you'll have a drone running all over each of the buildings, take the LiDAR or the sensor data, bring that back, and then create a 3D map, indoor 3D map, and then you attribute it and kind of you build technologies around it. So that's broadly it. This is just a glimpse of what we see as the future. I personally believe for the next 20 years, there'll be a lot of play in this space and a lot of business opportunities and different things. Think about it, right? You go to a hospital and children are born in a delivery room, and everyone's concerned, oh, my child is there, and what if he gets mixed up, right? Everyone has this thought in the back of the mind, right? You start tagging the child, you put a little wristband on each of the babies, and the dad and the mom keeps going and looking inside and saying, hey, that's my child over there, right? You'll have an indoor map for that, right? You'll have some technology, some geospatial technology, and you start, have a thermal imaging or a heat map or something starts coming up, and you start, seeing it. We may find that ridiculous today, but people check into Facebook all the time. When check-in came in, I thought, who the heck was going to do check-in of themselves on Facebook? It was so stupid, right? But everyone checks in, right? It's a way of life. Does it make any logical sense? No, it doesn't make any logical sense. But it's a way to boast or brand that, hey, I was in this restaurant and I did this, and everyone has this whole thing. So for a lot of that, the next generation from outdoor is kind of done, more or less across the world. Indoor is just starting. Thank you.